As I turned on the camera, I smiled at myself for the foolish mistake I made before. Again, I like to stress checklists or things that you do that help to guide your behavior when you're practicing well, so that you don't fall into the traps that you know are available, and you also look for solutions that you know are available if you look for them in certain ways. Well, this process of taping, I've already reminded myself that running out of space on my SD card is not a good thing, and I should look at the camera. The fact is, I did something even more peculiar than that. I pushed the button that turns the camera off yesterday, and several times, for hours at a time in fact, I got videos of the piano as it changed over time, overnight in fact, that it got darker and darker and then lighter and lighter. It was really quite a lovely video if you wanted to watch light come and go on a piano. But that's all that I recorded, and I had no idea. So when suddenly I realized that my first attempt at the Prokofiev Sixth had not been recorded, it was because there was no space left, because I had been busy recording a piano sitting still, waiting to be used. So there you go. That it's very often the things at the top of your checklist, like turn on the camera or turn off the camera, or then, what's become something that should be a norm for me, see if there's enough space before you press the button. So maybe I've learned my lesson. If I hadn't, at least I have a sense of humor, and I played a joke on myself, unbeknownst to myself at the time. So there you go. We are back in the Prokofiev Sixth Sonata first movement, and I've just gotten through the first basic large statement. So we're going on to something else. This is the eighth note that precedes measure 24. Different stuff is happening here. Okay, so what I see immediately, the hands are alternating, but if I just practice them in alternation, I think it would be a waste of time, because what Prokofiev has indicated is so I'm going to check that thing first. In other words, there are supportive chords that go along with that, but I want to know what the melodic design is. And I'm not afraid to say I'm not always sure when there's a ledger line what the note is, so I'm trying to be really careful. Okay, so the first obviously weird thing is it's all chromatic until it's not. And it's not, there's a whole step up to the D flat. Okay, this looks an awful lot like problem is the notes are squished. Drives me a little crazy when composers don't make any kind of a spatial adjustment, or could be the editor or the publisher, so that eighth notes don't all look similar. In this case it looks triplety, but it's not. I think it's so the really unusual note is that E. hope for a consistency. These two measures with one another. The first one that went for sure. And back up. And the third one. Looks like A. I'm going to write A. So does it again. Does it again. All right. Okay. Next melody note is D. I've put such a significant visually orienting line in there that went right through the D. And I couldn't see it, but I'm going to write D. It's so squished up against all the other chords that I don't want to make mistakes here, so I'm being painstakingly careful. Okay. The G flat, I'm going to write a little break to indicate that the chromatic, the simple melodic line is broken. Same thing goes for that recurrent A. So it's three times. Whole step. Okay, let's see how that fits in context. Well, the right hand seems to be playing an awful lot of F major chords, so I'm going to leave out the bass for now. That doesn't matter, the bass is just doubled octave, so. Thing is that the right hand seems to be changing inner notes. I wonder that analogously, it doesn't adjust like that. One of those things where you think, is that right? Sounds right? Could be differently. Could be E flat, then going to, B flat chord, going to the A. But at least this score resolves it to D minor instead. Okay. I'm going to check my other edition that I don't completely trust and see if there's any distinction there. Maybe. And this time the left hand goes off independently. It's the first time the left hand isn't just playing the alternating melodic note. fingers in the right hand, and alternating with the left hand, which will be fun, and I'll explain that in a moment. I have octaves filled in with seconds and thirds of various sorts. I'm having to be careful with these notes because my instincts cry out, is that a B flat? And it's not. So, E flat, all white notes, yes. E flat. So I'm going to be redundant, put in some courtesy accidentals to be courteous to myself and my own learning. Now, that's odd to me. Going to the B to the E flat. Oh, but of course, because he's going to stress the E natural of this C major chord, so that E natural, E flat, excuse me, signals and the B natural leads to the C major as well. So, is that what Prokofiev was thinking? That's not what matters. I mean, it's useful if you really knew. What matters is that you can find a motivating way of explaining to yourself why the music fits together the way it does, because that can help you with empowering yourself to feel as if you are speaking something that you believe in, that you are saying something that's not just parroting what the composer chose, but that also shows you have internalized that language and assimilated it in a fashion that makes it meaningful for you. So if I have my own explanations for something, so as long as they're convincing and they give vitality to the music, and I'm not violating the integrity of the music, then I think I'm doing the right thing, or a possible right thing. Okay, another interesting thing here is that we've got octaves, 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 single note, opening up to a filled out octave, so that there's a rhythmic shift. Octave, 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 shift, and it makes for a longer line there. And the arrival, interestingly enough, is on the last half beat of the fourth beat. So 4 and 1, and 1, and 2, and 1, 3, and 4, and. Now, part of the reason that's interesting is that the left hand is playing exactly against that. And it's playing against it in a variety of ways. Rhythmically against it, because instead of going 4 and 4, 1, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and it's going 1, and 2, and 3. But it also has those kinds of changes. So it's got single to octave, single to octave, single to octave, single. But instead of a slur, he breaks the slur, and actually he creates a slur over this huge leap, in essence, which is not possible under the hand slur, obviously, but shows the linkage of this anacrusis to this down. Okay, now, here's where it gets interesting and physically fun, because he's got slurs pitted against one another. In other words, the right hand is going like this, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. And I know Bartok taught this in some of his microcosmos. It's the fact that the hands often want to do the same thing. Ideally, the hands want to mirror one another. Second best, I suppose, would be to parallel one another. But when they're doing dramatically different things like this, that's something that requires, if you haven't ever done that kind of a thing, it requires you to practice it. I like to suggest something as simple as a series of 2-note slurs, like that kind of thing, so that you develop an automatic behavior that you can trust. So in this case, it's arriving at, for any of you who have ever seen an old-fashioned blender, the kind that doesn't have sealed buttons, it's my favorite analogy. Is you press down one button, whatever button was pressed down before pops up. There's only one button that can be there at a time. So in essence, as my left hand arrives on the keyboard, it pushes the right hand up, and then vice versa. It creates a good coordination. And then we go on melodically. So we had several, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's really more like 5.5 because it's a 2/4 measure at one point. Anyway, we have this ascent, and then we start again. Okay, we still have this alternating. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Okay, that looks different. I got to be vigilant here. I think it's tough to read often when you have seconds jammed against one another and there's an accidental. A normal rule of thumb I use for music before the 20th century is that most of the time those accidentals tend to spread the seconds apart so that they represent whole steps, or sometimes the equivalent of minor thirds. You know, in this case, I'm staring at it, and the alignment sure looks like an F sharp. Let's see how useful that is. If I'm here, F sharp is what I expect. Yes, of course. But then it goes on to A flat. So I'm going to note the fact that the A flat is a whole step. That's unexpected. We've had that before. Oh, I have a doorbell. Excuse me.